Chelsea are generating a whole load of interest from FPL managers at the moment. And it's no surprise, really, since Thomas Tuchel has come in, they're unbeaten in 14 matches under their new boss in all competitions. So let's take a look at what's coming up for them in the Premier League in terms of their fixtures. And it's a pretty appealing set of matches, particularly this next three, Sam. West Brom at home, Crystal Palace away and Brighton at home.
Yeah, for me, these are three fixtures that you absolutely need to be invested in the Chelsea defence for, maybe even doubled up on the Chelsea defence. I think that there is a real fixture swing for Martinez over the next few weeks. So swapping him out for Mendy might just be a wise idea. And I really like the look of Azpilicueta. He's the captain, the surety of starts is there, and some attacking threat. So there could be loads of upside for him in the next few weeks.
I would agree with that, yeah. Is that what that look means, Jim? I would agree, absolutely. I think Mendy is probably the safest way into that Chelsea back line. Rudiger's the cheapest, but the most exciting is not up here. Marcos Alonso.
All right.
Surely one to have a look at for this week. With Ben Chilwell going away on international duty, Alonso having a bit of a rest for these 2 weeks, surely he comes in.
Alonso, the kind of player you might go for if, for example, you were intending to wildcard next week, you could take a cheeky punt on someone just for the weekend. But if you were looking for a more reliable asset, would it be the likes of Azpilicueta, who's the only player who's featured in every single minute under Tuchel, or Rudiger, who's been really good, or Mendy, in fact, who's been pretty outstanding too?
Yeah, these three are more secure than Alonso, no doubt about it. When Chilwell's back and not had 2 weeks of international football, there would be a risk. But yeah, if you're playing your wild card next week and you fancy a cheeky punt at the back, then Marcos Alonso is a lovely nostalgia pick, isn't he?
Well, he certainly is. Which of these three would you go for, just to satisfy my curiosity?
I would go Mendy, just because he's the safest.
Yep.
Sam?
Azpilicueta for me.
Well, look, let's go to the more exciting options, because that's probably the safest picks, as you've both just highlighted there. But when you've got the likes of Reece James, Chilwell, Alonso, their minutes are far less secure. We've seen a lot of rotation since Thomas Tuchel has come in. But is it worth taking a gamble on one of them, particularly if, as you suggest, Sam, you go for the double up, so you go one of the safies and then one of these guys? Yeah,
I think if you're going to double up, then going for a bit of a punt on somebody like Alonso or Reece James, who I think is more sure of starts on his side of the pitch, potentially. Might just be a wise idea, but I think you need to have that safety net of having somebody to start, because they are going to be incredibly popular for the next 3 weeks.
See, I don't think you need that. I mean, we've all got benches that are full of top players right now. The way the season's panned out, we can afford to have some good players that get minutes on the bench. We're not, messing around with the 4.0 defenders like we have been in previous seasons. So if you bring in an Alonso or you bring in a Reece James and you've got that risk of rotation, they drop out. Hopefully they get 0 minutes. The big problem is if they come on for 10 minutes or so.
Specifically, what is it about Alonso and this fixture that you're most excited by?
Well, I think Alonso, certainly since Tuchel's been there, he's been the most attacking Chelsea defender, 2.5 shots per 90 and 1.9 attempted assists per 90 as well. So he's getting the shots away, he's getting the attempted assists away. So not only is the clean sheet locked in this week, I think, but he's got potential going forward too.
Ooh, very nice.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the midfield. A couple of options for you here, Sam. One is that fellow Mason Mount. The other one is Kai Havertz. I hope he's there behind me.
He is.
Super. All right, so now Kai Havertz was the bigger, he was the big acquisition over the summer. But I noticed that Mason Mount is not only cheaper, but he's got more than double the amount of points that Havertz has picked up. Against that, Havertz, the last couple of games, playing as the false nine, has taken on almost a new central role for Chelsea. So where would you be advising people to invest?
I'd go for Mount. I think we all had a bit of a concern when Tuchel took over that Mount might lose his spot, given that it was an international manager coming in. We weren't really sure. But Mount has proven time and time again how important he is to that Chelsea side. And I think he's standing up to be counted. He's like the one that I would expect in a few years' time, if he keeps playing like he is, could even wear the captain's armband for them. Was absolutely brilliant for England as well over international break. Yeah. Really impressive. And I think for surety of starts, for engagement and for the way that he's playing, Mount would win hands down for me of the Chelsea forwards.
It can't be hands down. He'll tick over the assists, but Havertz is, if you look at him, I think you're right, James, last couple of games, he's deployed closer to the goal. He's finding that freedom and space in between the lines. He's the one to go for, I think, not Mason Mount.
The haves and the Havertz. Yeah.
There you go.
Very good. What about Timo Werner? Bear with us on this one. We have to ask about him, because he came in with so much promise and he hasn't really delivered. Just one Premier League goal since game week 8. But there is a saying in FPL, isn't there, that if they've blanked for so long, they're due a goal. So is it worth taking a risk, or is that just too much money to spend on him?
It's a bit too much for me. I think it's weird, isn't it? You think back to game week 1 and there was this, just hysteria around everybody's got to have him. I think he had over 50% ownership game week 1. It's just not quite worked out for him. And I watched him a little bit over the international break as well. Again, didn't play great.
Missed a sitter against North Macedonia, didn't he?
Missed a sitter. So his Premier League form is kind of bleeding into his international form. And for 9.2, I think there's much better options up front.
Worth a risk or not, Sam?
Not for me. For not that much more money, you can have Jamie Vardy, and that feels like a much nicer option. Or you can spend a lot less and have somebody like Antonio or Watkins, who's got really nice fixtures.